Now, Canadians have voted to decide whether to extend Prime Minister Mark Carney-led Liberal Party's decade in power or hand over control to Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party.
Now, the first polls have closed and initial trends will start coming in soon. Voting is yet to end in Ontario, Quebec and Alberta, following which the exit polls and initial results are likely to start coming in. Elections in Canada were announced that it expects to count the vast majority of ballots on election night itself.
Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives were eyeing an election landslide earlier this year, but then trailed the Liberals in the days ahead of the voting.
Polls have shown Prime Minister Mark Carney ahead of Poilievre and projected the Liberals to win a majority of seats in the 343-seat House of Commons. Earlier in the day, both candidates cast their votes in Ottawa. US President Donald Trump's tariffs and threats of annexing Canada have become the central issue in the elections. Trump inserted himself into the race early in the day with a social media post saying Canada would face zero tariffs if it becomes the cherished 51st state of the US. Poilievre hit back firmly and said, President Trump, stay out of our election, quote unquote. Carney also weighed in saying this is Canada and we decide what happens here.
Now, the Prime Minister is seeking a renewed mandate for Liberals in this election. Remember, Carney replaced Justin Trudeau, who was the focus of the opposition attacks about inflation, high immigration levels and a housing crisis. The 60-year-old ex-central banker had no prior political experience before running to become Liberal leader earlier this year. He has billed himself as someone who knows how to negotiate and how to manage a crisis. Trump's involvement has not only infuriated many Canadians, but also put Poilievre and the Conservative Party on the back foot.
Let's take a look at issues that mattered most to the voters as they headed to polls. According to a recent poll conducted by a Canada-based research organization, cost of living tops the agenda for 72% of Canadians. And this is followed by US President's tariff onslaught on Canada, with 49% people listing it as one of their top three issues. Issues like healthcare, economy and housing affordability feature as most important issues for 39.32% and 30% respondents respectively.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined live by Harrison Faulkner from Toronto. He is a journalist covering the Canada elections from the ground. Thank you so much for joining us on WION World as One.
Thank you for having me.
Now, of course, as Shivan just mentioned as well, housing crisis, inflation, Trump's tariff threats, these were some of the major issues. I want to understand by asking you, of course, you've been covering this on the ground. What are some of the issues that top the agenda for the voters? How has it affected voter sentiment?
Well, of course, as your poll indicated, the cost of living is a significant factor in this election. But this election has been dominated by Donald Trump. Donald Trump, upon winning the election, immediately began taunting Justin Trudeau, threatening tariffs on the country, eventually putting in several tariffs on this country, and continuing to insert himself in the election. This has driven Canadians to the polls. It is the ballot question in this election. And of course, that means Canadians, when they go to the ballot box, they're asking themselves this question: who is the best leader to handle Donald Trump in this moment? Who is the best leader to deal with the tariffs and the annexation threats? When you look at the way that the election plays out, and this is basically typical in most Canadian elections, you need to have voter efficiency. That means that your Atlantic Canada votes, your votes on the East Coast and in Ontario and Quebec, mean a lot more than the votes out west, the Conservative base. We're already getting results. Polls are now closed across the country, and we're starting to see some major trend lines in this vote. Two big things for your audience to pay attention to: the failure of the New Democratic Party led by Jagmeet Singh to pull in leftist voters, to pull in the left, which would split the vote for the Conservatives. The NDP are not showing up with the votes that they need. The Bloc Québécois in Quebec, the French separatist party in Quebec, they are also not performing to the levels they expected to perform. These are the kind of factors that are taking place in this election. And what we're now seeing is, as the polls indicated, a tight election that the Liberals are currently leading.
Thanks, Harrison, for putting all of that in context for all of us. Also, I wanted to understand from you, there was a sudden turnaround for the Liberals after Trudeau exited. Mark Carney, who's a political newcomer, he came in, and Liberals who were once trailing in the ratings, and there has been a complete U-turn in that front. What is working for Mark Carney at this point?
I think Mark Carney is a beneficiary of circumstances outside of his control. The way that Donald Trump has inserted himself into this election will always play into the hands of a liberal or someone on the left. When the election is about combating and confronting Donald Trump, Canadians who are of the liberal persuasion or who are centrist voters and swing voters, if that's their ballot question, are they really going to vote for a conservative, or are they going to vote for basically what they consider to be the opposite of Donald Trump? In this case, the most electable opposite to Donald Trump would be Mark Carney. So that really has benefited the Liberals in this case. It has totally swung their fortunes in this election. I also think that Pierre Poilievre, his campaign was dominated by the cost of living. It was dominated by challenging Justin Trudeau's carbon tax and Justin Trudeau personally. With Justin Trudeau out of the picture, the Liberals, the Conservatives, basically had to rewrite their campaign strategy. I think that came through to many Canadians, and that was where we saw some serious lag in their campaign and in their support in the polls leading up to election.
Understood. Thanks so much, Harrison, for getting us all of that, all those details, and there will be lots more to track as the results start coming in further. That was Harrison Faulkner joining us from Toronto.